When your family falls apart due to crisis or divorce, the wrong attorney can make things worse. We're talking to the local Air Force veteran bringing military integrity to Colorado Springs' toughest legal battles. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Sandy Bobal-Zuniga, the founder of Colorado Springs Town Tidings. Be in the know on the go for all things Colorado Springs, delivered right to your inbox. We're sitting down with the founder of the law office of Nicholas Engle. The veteran-owned firm specializes in estate planning, family law, and probate. We'll be diving into his journey from serving overseas to practicing law and how he helps our community protect their legacies and navigate life's toughest transitions. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to reveal you to my audience on many different levels. So before we kick things off, let's rewind a bit before the law degree. Where did you grow up and what initially drove you to join the Air Force and serve our country?
Yeah, so first off, thank you for that very kind intro. I hope to live up to all those kind words you said. Um, yeah, to start off, so I grew up kind of all over the place. A lot of people, asked me if I had a military family, but I didn't. My dad would just, get a different job in another state, and then we ended up moving. So
Oh, wow.
let's see, I was born in Missouri, lived in California until I was 6, then lived in a suburb of Chicago until I was 12, I think, and then lived in Vicksburg, Mississippi, for my junior high school years, and then went to high school in Blacksburg, Virginia. Um,
Wow.
so so I did move around quite a bit, um, and in Blacksburg, where I went to high school, like every other kid, that the pressing question is kind of what do you want to do when you grow up, right?
Right.
And I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do until I grew up, and when I grew up, I should say. But I was 16. I had just turned 16 when 9/11 happened. So that kind of, sealed my fate, so to speak. From that point forward, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Oh,
Uh, so it was only a matter of trying to, figure out the best way to do that. I was originally going to enlist after I graduated high school. I was going to enlist at 17, actually, is what is what I was
oh,
going to do. But just as part of, taking English classes at in high school, my senior year or junior, I guess, is when you start applying for colleges.
right.
It's hey, let's help you prep for colleges. So I ended up applying to the Citadel, which is a military school in South Carolina, the Virginia Military Institute, the school there, military school there in Virginia, and then Virginia Tech, which Blacksburg is where Virginia Tech is located. So I applied to all three of those and ended up picking VMI to do my undergrad. Um, Mainly because I wanted to have an experience of what it was like to be the low man on the totem pole, right? To be an enlisted guy, to do that before I jumped into leading these folks. I wanted to experience what it was like you know, to follow, right? And that's what they, they kind of taught you there. So that's where, my I started in 2003, right? Graduated in 2007, and commissioned in the Air Force and started that journey.
Right.
Uh,
So basically it was if 9/11 didn't happen, you might have had a different fate, but because 9/11 and we all those of us
yeah,
who were alive then, we
yeah,
all know where we were at the time, and that had such an impact on our country in general, that it obviously had a profound impact on you because that
Yeah.
basically was where your life was going because of that. How
Yeah,
can,
no, no, and I'd already always, had a deep respect for those who had served before, and paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy here, and always had a love of country, right? But I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to jump into military service at that time, right? Maybe actually, like I said, I really had I really had no real direction then, but I was 16 years old at the time. So that's yeah, you're absolutely right. Once that kind of happened, I really felt like I had no choice.
right,
Um that I needed to give back. So that's kind of the path I took, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that in the Air Force.
right. So, and so you were pulled, and also where you were traveling or moved so many
Yeah.
times when you were a kid, that's tough in general. And usually we find that with military. So that's very interesting that you were doing it because your dad had a job. Did he have a specific industry that he was in that caused that, or was he just
No,
changing
it
different jobs?
wasn't like a job that you might think that led you to move a lot. He
Uh-huh.
was what was he? He was a um product manager for industrial lighting. So right. So you don't really think of that type of job as one that you might move around quite a bit. But putting resumes out there and just getting a better job in another location, and then we happen to move. So yeah, and it does, kind of before I joined, it does kind of relate back to those folks that did grow up doing that. So I kind of understand, moving and getting acquainted with new friends and new area and doing that whole thing. It's just for a different reason.
Right. And that kind of tells me a little bit because you don't seem negatively affected by
No,
that.
no, no. Yeah.
And as you were doing that, from your experience growing up, you know how to get into any situation and be able to navigate it with grace in general. So whether it's a new place, a new business, a new court hearing, any of that, you are adaptable and you will be able to thrive in any situation. That's what it's telling me.
Yeah, and really the Air Force does a great job of that, just in general, right? So I mean, I definitely had some of that going growing up, but when you're in the Air Force, I had maybe five or six. If you look at my resume, it says I had five or six different jobs in the military. But within that, I mean, I was asked to do all sorts of things, from planning retirements to deployments to, you know, briefings to it kind of ran the gamut of what you're asked to do. And, you're kind of just expected to figure it out. And I think, growing up like that definitely helped. And my time at VMI definitely helped with that. And the time that I had in the military, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It does help you, learn that skill set and learn how to adapt and figure it out and get the job done.
For sure. So how long were you in the Air Force?
I was in for 11 years. I never really, I never really had a goal to make it to 20. I never had a goal not to make it to 20. I was kind of just take it as it comes, right? Next duty assignment, is this good for me? Is this good for my family? And then kind of make the decision there. A lot of folks, they have now switched retirement systems. But when I was in, you had to make it to 20, and then, a lot of people kind of pressured is not the right word, but there's a lot of benefits to making it to 20 years.
Right.
Um, and
There's
and
benefits.
the benefits, right? And I was like, it is, there are a lot of benefits to making it to 20 years, but my perspective was just, okay, hey, is this next assignment good for me? Is this next assignment good for my family? Is this where I want my career to go? And that's just kind of how I approached, my time in the Air Force.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's more of incentives to stay in
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and you weigh them out, whether they're,
Yeah.
like you said, good for you and your family, or is it time to pretty much step out and then move on? And so towards the end of your Air Force career, what kind of job were you doing? And then I think we talked about a little bit, you went from that to independent contractor
Yeah.
or contracting with the government.
Yeah. So I started my career, the job that I was assigned, I should say, or the career field I was assigned in the Air Force was as an intelligence officer. So I went to 6 months of training at San Angelo, at Goodfellow, I guess is the name of the Air Force Base, at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, and learned how to be an intelligence officer. And then the Air Force decided I needed to go to a cyberspace wing and do the cyberspace mission right outside of that. And then at that time, cyberspace operations and that whole thing was just kind of starting to mature a little bit within the Air Force and within the Department of Defense at large. So, once you kind of gain that knowledge, then it's easy to expand on that and get more familiar with that. So that's kind of what I started doing. Um,
What year was that about?
that
2018?
was '08 is when I went to, no, sorry. Yeah, that's right. '08. Spring of '08 was when I first started was my first real Air Force job, I suppose, outside of training.
And then
Um,
the intelligence part, the cyberspace, was that closer to the end?
no, it was right then. Yeah, that was my
Oh,
first
wow.
job was
Okay.
cyberspace operations.
Wow.
Yeah, and well, so I guess it was technically a hybrid of the two, where I did intelligence for cyberspace operations,
Okay.
and then I moved to another squadron, and I purely did offensive cyber operations.
Wow.
And I did that for a little while, and I had the opportunity to deploy out of that position, supporting that unit overseas in Afghanistan, and then took a little break at the National Reconnaissance Office and did some personnel recovery work for them, um, which again is not really a traditional intelligence job or cyberspace operations job, but did some work for them and then ended my career at Cyber Command because at Cyber Command, in the intervening time, United States Cyber Command was created, and then I did some work for them. And that is where I finished my career was at Fort Meade, um, working out of the Joint Operations Center for Cyberspace Command. And immediately there's plenty of defense contracting jobs available in that area, for folks that have that experience and that have a clearance. So I transitioned into doing mostly the same work, cyberspace operations, for a contracting company, and um, that's how I kind of transitioned out of the military.
Is that how you got to Colorado Springs then?
That is not actually how I got to Colorado Springs. Um, so
Wah,
so
wah, wah.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. So um, while I was in the military, I ended up getting a divorce from my ex-wife, and we had three children, three little kids. I guess we still have three little kids, but we have three little kids.
They're grown up
And
now.
yeah, my oldest son just turned 18 a couple weeks ago. So they're pretty big now. But we had three small kids at the time, and we split up. And my ex, a couple years later, ended up moving out to Cheyenne.
Okay.
And we did me fly there, they fly here thing for a couple years, and that really just wasn't working. And at the time, um, my wife and I, we just had a baby too. And so it was a good time to, if we were going to make a change, plus it's very expensive in DC in the DC area to live, to get a house of any type, and it's very expensive. So that plus I had a job opportunity out here in Colorado Springs, as a defense contractor, um, and trying to reduce that travel time to see my older three big kids. That all kind of culminated into us moving out in May of 22. I always get the dates confused as to when,
Right.
as to when I actually moved out here was in May of 22.
Right. Well, you had so
And
much going on. So you were getting a divorce while you were in the Air Force?
yeah, so we started that process in 2015, and then it finally ended up in 2026. So I was in the whole time. Um, yeah, I was in the Air Force the whole time. And that's part of it too, is right, the decision to um, separate from the military. On one hand, I had started down this path to make a career as a lawyer. And so that's kind of hard to do while you're active duty military. And they tell you where they want you to live most of the
Right.
time. And so while I could control that to a certain extent, it was just much harder for me to stay in that area, and then much harder for me to, once my ex relocated, it's just hard in general to try to get the Air Force to move you where you want to go. Well, there are
Right.
bases out here, there's bases in Cheyenne, there's a base in Cheyenne. It's just hard. You never know.
Plus, while
Um,
you're active duty, you are required to move every so many years
you
in
are.
general.
Yeah, you are. So yeah, there are ways around it in the
Yeah.
DMV area, which is what I took advantage of. I happened to go to I happened to have been stationed with the person that decided where intel officers go. So I talked to her a little bit and was able to and told her my situation at the time, and was able to stay there in the at least the area, right?
Right.
But after that, it's up to the needs of the Air Force. They could send you wherever they wanted to. So that played in a factor as into me getting out as well.
Got it. So let's go ahead and transition a little bit to after cyberspace and government contracting, uh, deciding to become a lawyer. Obviously, you had
Yeah.
that thought. Now, was it because you went through a divorce and it seemed like it took a little bit of time and that kind of thing? Was that kind of the impetus of
Yeah.
why you wanted to become a lawyer? What was your experience and how did that play into you saying
Yeah.
cyberspace to being a lawyer?
Yeah. No, no, that played a large role. I up to, obviously I wasn't a lawyer in the military. I didn't, have any, real thought of being a lawyer at all, right? My impression of what lawyers did on a day-to-day basis comes from, My Cousin Vinny and Law and Order and things like that. I had no real idea what an actual lawyer did. So it wasn't really on my radar to do that. But as my, as I got divorced, obviously I retained a lawyer during that process,
Mhm.
and his guidance during that time was invaluable to
Okay.
me. Um, and you as somebody that's going through that, not as much on the, I do estate planning and probate as well, but not as much on the estate planning side, but on the probate side and on the family law side, you're talking to an attorney because something bad has happened.
Right.
And that's most of the time you're encountering people on their worst day or one of their worst days. And they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. And that's how I was, am I ever going to see my kids again? Am I going to be able to survive just financially? Right? What is that? All of those questions are just running through your head and you have no idea. You
Right.
don't know what's about to happen. And his guidance and advice was just invaluable to me. And then as obviously it's a very emotional event for anybody that time period. And then as that kind of, you know, lessened a little bit, that emotional side, I learned that I liked the legal side of it. I liked that. It was enjoyable to me. It was enjoyable doing the research. It was enjoyable, kind of applying the facts to a given situation. So that part was enjoyable to me. So I and so I liked that combination because it appealed to kind of what I did in the military at a more granular, acute level. Um, and I could take that knowledge and help somebody in their darkest moment, right? And that's why I wanted to switch careers. I obviously I loved serving, right? I
Right.
love serving, and the thing that I liked the most about being in the military was helping and leading the airmen that I was entrusted with guiding and leading. That's the part that I liked a lot.
Wow.
And in my, in my experience and what I had done and experience with a divorce, I thought it turned out to be true that switching careers, I could do that. I could apply that knowledge every single day to my clients and apply that, compassion and my kind of story to my clients. And I find that really, really satisfying. And so that's kind of where obviously I didn't know at the time that that was going to be the case
Right.
because I didn't really know what lawyers did. But I was, having seen what my attorney did in that type of lifestyle, I was like, this is what I think I want to do. So
So you went to
in
law school then.
I did I did go to law school. So I think I took the bar again. It's hard for me to, or not the bar, the LSAT. I think I took that the fall of 2016 is when I
Oh, okay.
took the LSAT. Um, I think it might have been the spring. I can't remember exactly.
Okay. That's okay.
Spent some time prepping for that and then took the LSAT and then started law school in 2017 while I was still active duty. I did it at night. Most of the law schools in the DC area offer a night program.
Okay.
Um, and it just takes you an extra year, right? It usually takes 3 years to go to law school, but it took me 4 years because that's how long the night program is. So I was active duty for the first year and was going to law school at night, and then I transitioned out of the military, and then the remaining 3 years was a defense contractor while going to law school at night.
Great. And then you passed the bar and here you are.
I did pass the bar. Yes, I did pass the bar. Yeah, and I passed the bar, and then that about I took the bar at about the same time that my wife and I were having that discussion about whether to move out to Colorado. Um, and then took the bar, passed the bar, um, you know, got a contract job out here, moved out here, and then kind of set up shop from there.
So how does it work if you pass the bar? Do you
Mhm.
have to get your a license in each state that you're going to
You do,
practice?
yeah, yeah. So
So you were
so
there in DC,
I
you
was there
passed
in
the
DC.
bar, you moved in and you said, okay, now I got
I
to do
know.
something else.
Yeah. So fortunately for me, I took what's called the Universal Bar exam. and that is accepted in, I want to say 26, 30, some number of states. If you score what their, whatever their score threshold is on the universal bar exam, then you could transfer your score from DC, which is where I originally took it and was admitted to practice, to Colorado, who also takes the
Oh, nice.
universal bar exam. But
See, you were so smart.
well, yeah, I mean, I thought a little bit ahead at least on that part. And so, I took the bar in DC, and then, the universal bar exam, and then I got the score I needed to transfer into Colorado. You do have to go through character and fitness, making sure that you're not a criminal and all that good stuff to practice in the new jurisdiction. So I did that and got finally, got that approved and was sworn in December of 22, I believe. Again, the
Awesome.
dates are the dates are all over the place.
You, well, you've got a lot going on and had a lot going on, so
Yeah.
I can totally understand it. And since you're so detail oriented, I bet you had it all written down somewhere where you could find it where you need it.
Yeah, I mean my license is up there on the wall, so I could check that right quick, but that's where it's at. But yeah, and so that's how I came to be here and be licensed here in Colorado, and then started from there.
Great. So your own challenging experiences with the legal system uh, that actually inspired you to become an
Yeah.
attorney, how did sitting in the vulnerable client's seat basically shape the compassionate way you run the firm today?
Yeah, so I try to treat every client like I was treated, and try to come at it from their perspective. Um, people don't, people don't, like I mentioned before, people don't typically interact with the legal system. And when they do, it's on a not great day for them. And I try very hard to understand that position. And just because I interact with the legal system and I, you know, know how to navigate that at least a bit better than they do. I try
As
to
you should.
understand that yeah, that they don't know that. And what might be a simple procedural thing to me is not to them. And to understand that every single thing matters. When you're creating a parenting plan for somebody that's going through a divorce, that that matters to them a great deal. And the language might be the same from client to client, but to them it's not. To them, this is the first time that they're seeing that. And like it was the first time for me seeing a lot of the things and I also understand how important it is to try to get it right. You're not always going to get it right. You can't always foresee every event that's going to happen, but you really need to try to get that right for that individual person, because that is what they're going to live for with their family, with their estate plan. That's what's going to happen if they were to pass away. After they get that taken care of, that's whatever's written there is what's going to happen. With the probate side, you know, that is a very sensitive time for folks. And they're going through a lot. Most of the time, folks have just lost a loved one. And I want to, just make sure that they're taken care of. And really that, like I think like I mentioned before, that was what I really enjoyed the most about the military, was taking care of my folks, taking care of the people that I was trusted to lead. And that's what I like the most about this job is trying the best I can to take care of these folks. And so I really do think that um, attorneys sometimes lose sight of that. They've As much as I like to joke that the military is not a real job, I had a real career where I interacted with not that lawyers aren't real people, but
Right.
but I interacted with all sorts of different folks and had that experience. Um, and I understand what it's like to be on the other side of the table and get that. So I think that combination of those two brings us perspective that oftentimes is lost with a traditional firm.
I agree. I totally agree. And so during your military career, including your tours in Afghanistan, you developed some highly specialized fact-finding and investigative skills, obviously. So how does that the leave no stone unturned military mindset give you an edge when uncovering facts in, say, a messy family law or probate case?
Yeah, sure. Like you mentioned, a good chunk of my career was spent trying to make sure that the information that I had gathered at that time was correct. And in that instance, it is a bit of hyperbole to say that lives were on the line. If I got something wrong, uh, that wasn't for sure was not always the case, but people depended on me and on the folks that worked for me to get things right. And you need to get things right. I would not say that I was the tip of the spear by any stretch of the imagination, but what the work that I did and the folks that I worked with helped those people putting their lives on the line. So you needed to get it right. And similarly, I think that mindset, plays into whatever avenue I'm going down with estate planning, with the probate side, and with the family law side, that you do need to try to get everything right and try to make sure that you have all the facts and have all the information and give sound, solid advice. And that's part of my overall ethos here is I try to not be a stereotypical lawyer. I hate using the phrase "it depends."
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I do have to use that phrase every once in a while.
Right,
But I try to avoid using that phrase as much as possible. And I try to tell people the truth. I
right,
try to tell people what I think. I try to tell people what I think and what I think is going to happen, even if they don't want to hear it,
right,
even if it's not something that they want to hear at the time, um, because I think that that's important. I think it's important, and I obviously I'm not mean about this, right? But I try to do it in a way that is compassionate, that says, look, I understand what you're going through. I understand why you might think that, but if you go down this path, or if this other thing happens, this is what's likely to happen after that. I think that's really important to tell folks that, and you're not going to get that experience even if you've had 100 cases, 200 cases. You're not going to get that experience unless you've lived in the, quote, I keep saying real world, right? But unless you've lived in the real world and dealt with that type of thing,
right.
and or gone through it yourself. That's important. And I think it's important to tell people that and do it in a way um, that's not mean, that's not condescending, but tells them, what you think and what you think is going to happen.
Right. There's something really important. I'm the type of person who likes to know information,
Yeah.
and because of that, then I can make my decisions.
Yep.
The worst place to put me in general is in the unknown. And
Yeah.
yes, life, there is a ton of unknown. Um, any control is an illusion. Already know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, what can we do to help the um, get to an outcome that is more favorable than where we don't want to be. And without the facts and information, then it's hard to even consider what what is going to happen. And especially if you already know there is some hiccups or like something around the corner that might give them the um, like a slap in
Yeah,
the face,
sure.
virtual slap in the face or something like that. You want
Yeah.
to make sure that they know beforehand. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to go there, but that's their choice. If they have the information which you're giving them, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, it's just information at that point because there's no action taken. It's just information. So then you have
Yeah.
to decide what to
Yeah,
do.
and I like to joke with my clients that I have no real power, right? I am their advocate, but they're the ones that are, it's their name on the line at the end of the day. The court can make you do something, certain things. I can, help present the best case, but at the end of the day, it's you deciding to do something, to set up your estate plan this way, or to take this course of action, or the court's going to tell you to do it. One of the and the biggest, you absolutely nailed it. The biggest driver of fear is the unknown in your client. So I mean, I take that very seriously to try to clarify that, and just this is what's going to happen. Don't worry so much about this, but maybe we need to worry about that. I take that very seriously. I think it's really important to be clear with that for your clients.
Right. And as we're talking about that, you deal with people during their most stressful life events, a divorce, death of a loved one, or planning for the unknown. How do you balance being a fierce strategic advocate, as you said, with being a calming force for a family in crisis?
Yeah, so I think it's important to be the calming force, maybe not primarily, but I want to lead with that.
Right.
Um, Mainly because people don't make great decisions when they're stressed out. Um,
No,
they
I don't
don't
believe that.
they don't make great decisions. So you need to be the person that is saying it is going to be okay. And I can honestly tell them, I can say, you know why it's going to be okay? Because I've been where you're at and I'm okay. And that really hits home with a lot of folks that I've been there, I've done that. I believe me, I know what you're going through. It's not fun, but you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay at the end of the day. On the flip side of that, if I do need to go to bat for somebody in court or wherever, then I'm very comfortable doing that. And will absolutely do that. But I do want to make sure that we are doing it for a reason, and then that reason was made in the light of day and was made with all the facts and was made with a clear and calm head. So I think it's very important to lead with, look, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Here are the tools at your disposal to get through everything. And one of those is, you know, zealous litigation, zealous advocacy and litigation. And the other is, settlement. The other is, whatever else is going on. But I think it's important that they know that.
So, what's your criteria, maybe in your own head, not necessarily, hey,
Yeah.
you need to meet this, but what do you think of when you think of your ideal client?
Yeah.
And do you take everybody who comes through the door, or is there something that is more aligned because you have to advocate for them? So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've got to get a feel in general to know if
Yeah.
you can even help them.
Yeah, so for the estate planning side, that's a little less crisis driven. Um,
But
so
it's unknown.
it is unknown, yeah. So I try to, um, try to look for folks that are, military service connected somehow, that how either they're in the military or they're, um, civilians or just getting out or associated somehow. Looking for folks. Obviously, I'll take, if you want to use my services, I'm more than welcome. But that's kind of where I target that. For the other buckets. Um, those are more crisis based, right? So you don't really know, and so it's kind of hard to target a perfect client for those scenarios. I, as I was just kind of talking about a little bit, I am not going to do things that don't serve a purpose. So if your goal in a probate litigation or a family litigation, family law litigation, if your goal is to get back at somebody, if your goal is to punish somebody, then I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work with you. That's not, first off, the system's not designed to do that.
Right.
And that is not what I want to do. That's just not what I want to do. Now, if you obviously during those times, um, you do have certain rights and obligations and um, things that need to be protected during that time, and that absolutely will go to bat for you 100% of the time on that. And so it's not much. I personally don't think it's much of a filter that you have to be in it for the right reasons. You need to be able to, you need to take care of yourself, take care of your kids, make sure you're financially secure, make sure that you're involved in your kid's life, make sure that you get the inheritance that you're deserved, things like that. But if you're doing it to get back at somebody, if you're doing it for revenge, I, I'm not, I don't like doing that, and I would try to shy away from clients that do that type of thing.
Do you kind of ask those questions beforehand, like if
I
they,
don't. I don't. Maybe I should, but I don't. You get a pretty good sense. You get a pretty good sense pretty
I don't
quickly.
know if they'd be necessarily honest, even if you did, but it might be part of
Well, yeah.
the,
It is,
our
it's funny
work.
because they probably wouldn't be honest, if I put a questionnaire, are you doing this for the right
Right.
reasons? They probably would not answer that accurately, but just in the type of language that a potential client would use, you get a sense pretty quickly that they're doing it for revenge or some other reason. You get a sense pretty quickly. So
Yeah. And because you have both that left and right brain kind of coming from the
yeah.
intelligence to compassion, I'm pretty sure you could probably pick that up fairly quickly in a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that I'm relatively good at reading folks, but then my wife would beg to differ if you were to ask her. But
That
um,
doesn't count. Your
well,
your partnership relationship, that's a whole other can of worms.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is, and I don't think it's a unique skill set either. I think that if you've been doing this for long enough, you can figure that out pretty quick.
I beg to differ, but you can have
Yeah,
humility.
yeah,
You can be humble.
yeah. Yeah.
I'll let you. So what about when somebody comes in, like say for a divorce, do you take cases both that are contentious and those that want to do it amicably?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, so I do take both. So I along with a handful of other attorneys in the area are trying to restart the collaborative law practice in Colorado Springs. I'm just now, starting to get a little bit more formal about it and get involved in that practice. Um, there was a collaborative law group that was relatively robust here in the Springs. And then there was an ethics opinion that came out, I want to say right before COVID, that said that that was unethical to do that, to do a collaborative law type setting. Um,
what does that mean, collaborative law?
So the traditional collaborative law framework that we are trying to get started is where both sides are represented, but both sides enter into a collaborative law agreement where they say we are going to settle this out of court. We are not going to litigate, and we are going to use these two attorneys plus a mediator and usually a financial advisor that kind of takes care of the finances and takes care of the financial picture for both parties to come to some sort of agreement.
Oh,
The ethical side of that was um, basically entering into an agreement with the opposing counsel and entering into an agreement with um, like a mediator, well, not a mediator, but the financial person to run the finances for both sides. That's where the ethics opinion had a bit of a problem with that. Um, because I can't represent both sides of the divorce in
okay.
general. But under this framework, the Colorado State legislature, since that ethics opinion, has said that we can do this and can use that model. So I'm trying to lean a little bit more into that and
Mhm.
direct my practice towards that. Excuse me. Almost nothing that happens in a family law practice is amicable.
Okay.
So once you start down that path and you start taking cases, it 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 just lends itself to litigation. It really does. So which in certain aspects you do need, you absolutely do need. But litigation is about the worst way to solve that problem, the problem of getting divorced that you can think of. It's a really poor tool to really get to a good solution that works well for all the parties and works well for the kids. There's a lot of reasons for that. Mainly, if you end up going to court, it's traditional civil litigation. So there's objections. You're not going to hear from the kids most likely. You have to follow the rules of evidence. All of these things that are designed for traditional civil litigation are applied to the domestic relations field. And in El Paso County, you get 2 hours
Okay.
total. So if I'm presenting, I get an hour to tell your entire story about why you think that you deserve this amount of time, deserve this amount of money and support, deserve this property split, and that is not a lot of time. And then this judge that has never met either one of you, either party, they then hear testimony for 2 hours and then they have to decide your entire life after that. It's just a very, very poor way to figure that out. So being a family law practitioner and doing, probate litigation type stuff, you do need to engage in that. You have to engage in that. That's really the only way that anything, well, not the only way to think, but that's the way ultimately, if the parties don't decide, that's where it will end up. So you do have to engage in that. But as I mentioned, me and a couple other attorneys are trying to carve out a space that is more collaborative, that does help these folks come to a solution that is better for them, better for their families, better for their kids. Um, again, that is in its infancy, but that is a space that I'm trying to explore a little bit more.
Interesting. So if somebody doesn't have kids or it's the kids are grown and
Mhm.
adults on their own, can you divorce without having an attorney if you guys kind of
Yeah,
agree
you
or
can. Yeah, and a lot of folks do that. There are um, in El Paso County and most other counties have some version of a family court facilitator, and they are not attorneys. They're not judges. They're not magistrates. Their job is to shepherd folks through the process. So you go talk to them, and they say, "Okay, well, if you agree, here's the form you need to fill out." and the forms are pretty decent. So you can go and if you do agree, then you can do everything by yourself. Um, the the problem obviously is when things go wrong and when people don't agree, and that's where the problem comes in. And that's the same across all my practice areas.
Right. Okay.
With the estate planning side, most of the time it's pretty straightforward. You have two kids, you know, a couple will come in, they have two kids, they want everything to go to their kids in equal shares. Um, you know, that's very straightforward. That's probably going to happen without a will too, or some sort of testamentary document. That's probably going to happen. But if something goes wrong in that administration, if something goes wrong between those two kids, if something, that's when a sound estate plan really helps out, is when something goes wrong. And similarly on the probate side, there are forms out there that people can get, and it helps them. It tells you what to do in each step of the way. It helps you along those, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Um, but as soon as something might go a little sideways, then that's really when you need an attorney to kind of help you out there.
So in any of those situations, if you decided you were going to do it on your own, do the forms and
Mhm.
everything, then when something starts going sideways or you hit like a hiccup, that's when they would come to you. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so it's actually funny you say it like that. I would actually prefer that they came to me prior to all that
Of
because,
course.
because then I could make sure all of the preceding stuff was done correctly, and then it's just much easier. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times people will think that everything's okay, and then, oh, that thing that my spouse agreed upon, they don't actually agree. Now what do I do? And I'm of course happy to help with that. But if you kind of had an idea that something might go sideways, it's best to at least talk with somebody first.
So with
And
you,
yeah,
then if either way, obviously either contact you and go through everything and have you do everything, or contact you and say, hey, we're got a limited budget and all that stuff. We're thinking about
yeah,
doing this on our own. Is there a different tier that maybe you become an advisor or something to look
yeah,
things over and then
yeah.
make sure?
No, that makes sense. There are attorneys out there that do that type of thing.
Okay.
So I do partner with Marble, which is a service that kind of matches people with attorneys here in Colorado and in other states to do specific things for them on their legal journey.
Okay.
So for example, they would work with them to get an attorney to attend a mediation session for them
Okay.
in just that mediation session. Outside of the partnership that I have with Marble, I don't do that as part of my practice.
Okay.
I do know attorneys that will help you just with the paperwork. And I know attorneys that will do, it's called services, unbundled representation, that do unbundled work on a flat fee basis. For my probate litigation side and for my family law side, it's at an hourly rate.
Okay.
Um, and really that's mainly because I haven't cracked the code on what a service looks like and what the pricing looks like on that. It's just much easier for me to take the whole thing on and just do the hourly billing.
Oh, gotcha. And then with the collaboration, though, that may be another option too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that would most likely look like a flat fee type of arrangement where you're engaging um, me in a partnership with, like I said, the whole team to kind of help you through that. Again, like I said, that section and those folks that currently do that in Colorado Springs are trying to recover the program from that ethics opinion that kind of shut everything down. So
Mhm.
it's really, really new. But if you want to be more collaborative with your contested divorce, I am more than open to taking that approach. I know that, and as I mentioned before, court is the last place that is suited to solve this type of thing.
Right,
And not only that is it tends to leave a bad taste in people's mouths when they get done. You're usually not saying the nicest things about your soon-to-be ex, and that just doesn't it. There. I know from personal experience that there's life after that decree,
right,
and where it might seem like, everything stops until then, you have to live with that decree, and you have to live with that person for the rest of your life.
right. Yep. If you
You're
have
caught,
kids,
and
especially if
especially
you
if
have
you have kids,
kids, then that's the rest of your life. So might as
especially if
well
you
make
have
it
kids.
as not amicable if if you got a divorce that was contentious to begin with, but in general, just know that for the rest of your life you're tied to that person.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
try and make it
So, right,
as pleasant as possible. Not pleasant for that part, but for the rest of your lives
right,
when you go ahead and have to be together.
right. Yeah, and all of that, um, you know, I am obligated, just as an attorney in general, to provide practical advice as well as legal advice. So I can say so, and I think that my background is makes me well suited to do that. So I can say, I think that court will give you this result, or, well, actually, it's very hard to tell what the court will do, but I think that there's a range of results that I think you will get from the court. This proposal that we're getting is within that range. So if you do go to court, I don't know if you're going to get more. I don't know if you're going to get a less, But if you also go to court, that's time, money, and effort that you got to spend. And you're likely to, have leave a bad taste in your mouth, leave a bad taste in your ex's mouth. And that is not good for the future prospects of this relationship that unfortunately you have to maintain
Right,
in some capacity for the rest of your life.
right. Yeah. So then if anybody's interested in contacting you, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I calling me is great. I on my website, it's my phone number. My email is on there as well.
Okay.
There's an opportunity to, I have a lot of good ways. There's not a one best way, but there's an opportunity to book if you're not quite ready to sit down and come into the office for an hour-long consultation on my website, you can do a 15-minute time with me that you can book out just to touch base with me. Like I said, call, email that 15 minutes, and then on my website as well, if you are comfortable coming in, you can book a time on my calendar. There's links for that, and come in and do a consultation. I'm open to doing consultations um, virtually, Zoom, um, over the phone, in person. I'm open to all those methods. For the estate planning side, the only concern I have with that is I have to ensure that the person making the will or the trust or the testamentary document has capacity to do that. And sometimes, oftentimes, that requires me to put eyes on them and make sure that they have the capacity to make that.
All
But
right.
other
Yeah.
than that, you know, I don't need to necessarily do that for the representation for probate, and I don't need to do that for the representation for family law. So it's really up to the client and how they're comfortable with that interaction and how they're comfortable moving forward with me.
And what part of town is the office in?
So I have an office space in a little office complex just south of the Briargate Promenade on
Okay.
the north side of town. So there's a little office building there. So that's where I sit for most of the day.
And that's 1755 Telstar Drive?
That's correct. Yeah, it
Suite
is
300.
Suite 300 is where I am at. I'm in a Regis office complex, and those folks up at the front know
Great,
can point you in the right direction.
great. So you are active with our local veterans and senior resource council. Why is it vital for you to protect these specific groups in Colorado Springs, and what's next for the firm?
Yeah, so I think it's important um, to be involved and protect the vulnerable populations that are out there, and those populations that need additional attention and additional care. So I definitely think that that's important. And here in Colorado Springs, especially, there's a large veteran population. So that is important to me as a veteran to try to cater to their unique needs and unique life story. So that's just very important for me to get involved in that. Um, as far as what is next for the firm, that's a great question. So I don't I don't have a great answer for you right now, but
That's
the
okay. It's
yeah,
always
so
developing, and I'm
yeah.
so excited to find out as you decide or take it in a whatever direction to know about it and to bring it out to my audience.
Yeah, so what I try to do here, just in general, is I don't have the aspiration to be a Robinson and Henry or a Gasper Law Group, one of the really big firms that's all over Colorado, or the Ramos Law, right? You see the billboards for that.
Or
I
the
don't The strong arm. Yeah, I do not have the drive to do that. I want to manage and expand this firm to serve as many people as I can, but I want to do it in a way that is in line with the values that I have and in line with the values of the firm.
Are you trying
And
to say you won't be following ambulances?
I won't be following ambulances. That is true. I will not be
Okay.
doing that. But as I mentioned, it's just very important to me to make this firm relatable to the people that come in here, and to respect the people that come in here and respect the time of those people that come in here, and be understanding and compassionate of where they're at in their life and in their journey. And if I get to the point where I have 10 different attorneys running around and that's not happening, then that's not where I want to go. But if it is happening, well, okay, great. But I
Right,
really want to try to keep this to be in line with the values that I started it with.
right. So start small and then slowly grow as the need happens.
Yeah, yeah, that's the idea. And I do want to kind of become more in touch and become more involved in the veteran community here. I personally obviously have connections with the veteran community, but just to try to expand out a little bit. So that's kind of the direction that I'd like to go as well.
Right, the military. And seniors also has
Yeah,
a special place in
yeah,
your heart, basically, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think those are the most vulnerable, not because seniors are vulnerable in general, but
No,
as we
yeah.
age, we some lose capacity, and now
Mhm.
there's different illnesses that when I was growing up, I didn't even know about that is more prevalent and like dementia and Alzheimer's
Sure.
and other things, Parkinson's and obviously cancer, it could be anybody, but all of these things that come as we age, we have um, more chances of these things happening. So if you prepare early enough, then there are things that can help if, God forbid, any of those basically happen, or if you're in it, kind of getting things set up.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that one's difficult in general, but I'm so glad that you have placing your heart for that demographic as well, because it's really needed, and they also need the compassion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, so Nick, what a powerful conversation we had. I am truly appreciative that you opened up about your journey today, and finding an attorney who brings both elite military strategy and deep personal empathy to the table is incredibly rare. I don't care what you say. You can stay humble. And it's exactly what makes your practice so special, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate the time. And again, thank you for those kinds words. Like I said, I'm very passionate about helping out people when they need it the most. And I'd like to think I'm pretty good at this. And so I'm happy to share my story with you.
Yep, and we just need to get you out there more, let more people know. So, for those of you watching and listening, if you're navigating a divorce, handling probate, or need to secure your family's future, you want that rare combination in your corner. You can connect with Nick at nicholasengleLaw.com. That's NicholasEnglelaw.com. You can call the office at 719-357-5935. And you can email info@nicholasengleLaw.com. And again, right now, you can get the address on the website. And at the moment, it's at 1755 Telstar Drive, Suite 300. I firmly believe the character of Colorado Springs is built by the people behind our local businesses, and every single one has a story that deserves to be heard. To stay connected with more inspiring local stories like this one, subscribe to Colorado Springs Town Tidings at cos.towntidings.com. I'm Sandy Bobal-Zuniga, celebrating our city one business at a time, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, Nick, for being here.